You're listening to New Talk on WNSR, New School Radio.
After graduating from Harvard University, Susan Fales-Hill began her writing career as an apprentice on the original Cosby Show, starring Bill Cosby and Felicia Rashad. After 2 years on staff, she was transferred to the show's spin-off, A Different World. She then went on to work on several TV shows for which she has received many awards. In 2003, Susan published Always Wear Joy by HarperCollins, a critically acclaimed memoir about her mother, the late actress, singer, and dancer Josephine Premice. The memoir was a finalist for the NAACP Image Award and the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Legacy Award for Nonfiction. In 2008, Susan completed and sold her debut novel, One Flight Up. She serves on numerous boards, including the Studio Museum in Harlem and the American Ballet Theater. In 2001, Susan was named to the International Best Dressed List Hall of Fame, which means she is also an Olympic gold medalist in international shopping. She is fluent in French and Italian and conversational in Spanish. She lives in New York City with her husband and their daughter. I would like to welcome Susan Fales-Hill to WNSR New School Radio. Miss Susan Fales-Hill, it's so good to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here on this gorgeous day.
Yes, and I am very excited because your book, I've been telling everyone about One Flight Up because I've been saying to everyone, I don't want to get married. Marriage is so difficult. You have all these problems. And in your book, it's a perfect excuse to tell people this is why you should not get married. It's about 4 women
Yes.
who are growing up in a very sort of ritzy environment. And at age 37, they find themselves just having a heck of a time doing not so nice things to their spouses.
Exactly.
So tell me about the book in a nutshell.
Well, I wanted to write the book for the very reason that you cite, that marriage is presented, particularly to women these days, as the brass ring, the ultimate goal of one's life, and the solution to all one's problems. And marriage is, as you cited, very, very challenging. Now, I didn't want to turn everybody off of marriage permanently, but I wanted to explore the discontents of marriage and the difficulties for women. We're so focused on male infidelity, but statistically speaking, women have reached parity. 50% of married men cheat and 50% of married women cheat. And so I wanted to explore the issue of infidelity, but from the female point of view, and also the question of having it all, the golden life. The women, as you say, there are 4 of them. It's a diverse group. It's a multicultural group, because I'm also tired of segregated literature. I don't know where these other people are living, where all their friends, like their garanimals, match them. But most of us are living very integrated lives, and I wanted to represent that. And they're from different socioeconomic backgrounds. There's a girl who was on scholarship. There's a girl who's mega wealthy, and then we have everything in between. And I just really wanted to explore the complexity of life and how when you're very young, you think you're going to do this, that, and the other and have the career and have the child, or the 2.5 children, and then you reach middle age and go, my goodness, the magazines lied to me. And what is happiness really? What is success really? What is marriage? What is love? Because marriage involves compromises and choices. If you marry the passionate love of your life, you're going to pay one price because there may not be a lot of stability. That's the case of one character, Abby Rosenfeld. She marries her college sweetheart, whom she's madly in love with, whom she has fabulous sex with, but he's very emotionally unstable and financially unstable. There's another woman who married the guy who has the same resume she does, Monique. It's the perfect buppy couple, but there's nothing going on in the bedroom, so there's a price that way. And then I have a character who's trying to choose between the safe person and the not safe person. And I'm also really interested, because I've spent so many years in therapy, in the whole issue of how our families of origin impact the choices that we make and shape who we are. And so that I also thought would be a lot of fun to explore. So it's chick lit without the riding off into the sunset to the altar, but more exploring what happens after.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard you say in a couple of other interviews that writing is plagiarism from life.
Yes.
And that was a big aha moment. It's like an Oprah Winfrey statement. And I've also heard you say that the main character, India, is who you identify with the most.
Right.
Was that intentional?
Absolutely. You have to write what you know, as they say. And, I mean, hopefully you're not just examining your own very boring navel. But I will say that I have experienced some version of all the emotions that all the different women have. But the the one who's closest to me in terms of background and emotional makeup, I would say, is India, who is a biracial character, daughter of an actress, as I am, although I flipped the order. Her mother's Caucasian, her father was black. But she grew up in this fabulously interesting but emotionally chaotic environment, which is my experience. And she's trying to be really straight-laced and trying to be very proper and trying to tame everything from her emotions to her hair. And life doesn't work that way, and it all kind of explodes in her face. And so it was a wonderful journey to take with her, because I wanted to take her one way, and the character taught me things about myself, and it was a lot of fun. Plus, as a biracial person, I'm a little tired of the mixed up mulatto, the tragic mulatto. There's nothing tragic about it. And many of us are screwed up, but not because we have parents who are different colors, because we came from crazy families. Craziness breeds craziness. It's not the race thing that makes you crazy. But it also, through a biracial character, you get to explore some of the absurdities of the categorizations with which we live, which when we really look at them and we look at the Genome Project, they're based on phenotype. Color, we don't know what we all really are. If we go do our swabs, we'll get some surprises.
One of the things I like about your book is that there are several undertones that can be easily applied to current events and what's going on in everyday life.
Yes.
There's class, there's race,
Yes.
there's privilege, there's adultery.
Yes.
And I would like to take a second and touch upon each of those things.
Okay.
And ask you questions about how they relate to everyday life.
Absolutely.
First off, with race.
Yes.
You used to be a writer for the show A Different World.
Absolutely, yeah.
With Bill Cosby.
Yep.
And I wanted to get your assessment on the media and how blacks are portrayed in the media. Certainly a different time when you were writing. Was it in the 80s?
It was the 80s and the 90s.
And now we're in the 2000s.
Exactly.
Where do you think we have evolved in terms of portraying African Americans in the media?
Well, we have evolved tremendously in that we're no longer just the hooker and the crack addict and the criminal. And we're not the district attorney either, exclusively. You have, I think, a greater variety. You may not have as many people, but you have a greater variety. Shonda Rhimes, who created Grey's Anatomy, really created a stealth black drama. When I was working full-time in TV, everyone was trying to create a black drama, and it was very hard to get one on the air, and the few that were attempted died. She did something brilliant, which is that she took a white main character, the doctor, and surrounded her with people of color. And in a stealth way, she created a black drama that has been one of the most successful shows on television. So Shonda Rhimes is a shining example of progress, and she took us the depictions of interracial relationships. I mean, just in my lifetime, to see, growing up and looking at television and never seeing a couple like my parents, and even knowing that on game shows it would not have been permitted to have a black man with a white woman or vice versa, and to now see main characters engaged in relationships with people of a different race, that is huge sea change. With reality TV and all the rest of it, it's not a pretty picture, but it's a bad picture for women in general. I still feel as though we have a long way to go, and the depictions are still in some ways limited, but they have become more international now to have Indian and African characters. I mean, we've come a long, long way. When I was in TV, to pitch a show with Indians or with African, it would have been unheard of, and now it's more or less commonplace. Mm-hmm. So we become globalized. We're seeing a lot more and a lot of change, but we have further to go.
To extend that point, Dr. Charles Ogletree from
Yes.
Harvard University just recently wrote a book.
Yep, I know Charles Ogletree. Yep.
And he focused the majority of it on his experiences representing Dr. Henry
Skip
Louis
Gates, absolutely.
Right, Skip Gates. And I went
when
to
he was arrested,
right,
trying to walk into his own home in Cambridge, leafy right. Cambridge. Yes.
Right. I went to a lecture that he did about the book,
yeah.
and I was fascinated because what he essentially said with respect to class and race
mm-hmm.
is that do not be fooled. No matter how much you've been able to accomplish, I
yep.
don't care what school you went to and what letters you have behind your name. Whenever you do whatever it is that you want to do within your career or professional life, people will always see you first by the color of your skin. And do you agree with that? Do you like the fact that that is the way that it is?
Well, I clearly don't like
No.
that. I think we need to wake up and live, and but one does encounter that attitude. A funny sidebar about Charles Ogletree. Last year, I had the pleasure of being on the Authors Pavilion of the Congressional Black Caucus, and I had to follow Charles Ogletree. So I thought, oh, great, Charles Ogletree, eminent legal scholar. And now I'm talking about 4 women, the young and the restless and the pantyless. What is this? And I quickly thought you better find a segue because otherwise they're going to leave in droves. And I thought he's talking about stereotypes. At the end of the day, most people of color, people who've undergone the ordeal that Skip Gates underwent, are victims of stereotypes and that thinking, which has not changed, unfortunately, in spite of having a black president. And my work, whether it was in television or it's been in magazines or in my books, it is about dismantling stereotypes and getting people to understand their mind bugs, their prejudices. So I think that those of us who have a voice, whether it's writing novels or writing for TV or being out there in the public eye, have to really take our responsibility seriously in terms of changing images and getting people to think about the way they perceive people, because it is a problem. And when people see a black man, they don't automatically think banker. I mean, I'm married to someone who's 6'5", but dresses from Brooks Brothers, and I can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, what team do you play for?" And no, basketball players do not wear Brooks Brothers. They wear much more expensive suits than that. But now, of course, now it's what team did you retire from? Because he's getting older. But just the fact that that's the first assumption. You're tall, you're black, you must be a basketball player. Sometimes I can't believe it's 2011 and we're still having these discussions. But that's why it's important for people to write, people to speak, and people to put it out there. And I also am a big believer, and I'm very glad you're doing this show, in we've got to learn our history. You know, people say, well, why are people so angry? I read in Time magazine, they were speaking of the Sally Hemings scandal. Sally Hemings, the mulatto or quadroon mistress of Thomas Jefferson. And they said she was his alleged sister-in-law. She's not his alleged sister-in-law. She was his sister-in-law. She was his wife's half-sister. And the fact that we have not accepted this history and really looked it squarely in the face, that we're all related. We're related by bonds of blood. America's a big incestuous family. What is really white? What is really black? I think that stands in our way. And so I think we've got to look to the past, and then people really have to just wake up and look around them and realize black people in every walk of life doing everything.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's as a young person trying to make a career,
Yes.
get my foot in the door.
Yeah.
And for younger people in general, it must be difficult. I know you have a young daughter.
Right.
We understand that it is what it is, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to change it. Hopefully, society changes it.
Yes.
But we have to wait for that. And
Right.
until that happens, we still have to try to get our foot in the doors. What do you say to
Exactly.
your daughter? What do you say to young people who are trying to do something, knowing that this is the environment we're
Well,
in?
I mean, I certainly would say you're already on second or third base, whereas your grandmother was not even anywhere near the field and had to make her way to the field, so the playing field. So we've come such a long way. The possibilities are there. I don't give her that speech that I was given of you have to be better, you have to work harder, because I think that freezes you. It makes you such a perfectionist and so terrified to make a mistake. And we should be allowed to make a mistake. Not an Anthony Weiner style mistake, but we all have to fail in order to learn. So I don't drum it into her head that she's at a disadvantage. I try to instill in her a tremendous sense of pride in all of her heritages. I try to give an example of striving, discipline, working hard, and I really instill in her the sense of history, the progress of history, and the role that she needs to play in history, that she needs to stand up and take advantage of the opportunities that she has. I really want to encourage young people not to be discouraged, to say, you are so far ahead of where your forebears were. So let's look at that. They were trying to do things at a time when it was impossible, when it was not illegal for someone to look you in the face and say, we don't hire anybody who looks like you. That's illegal now. There may be subtle ways of not giving you the best jobs, but no one can look you in the face and say, sorry, Roy, we don't hire your kind here. So we have to gain strength from the people who did it when there was no way to do it, and they managed. And gain strength from that and take it to the next step. There's always a way. I mean, Shonda Rhimes, she's cracked the nut. She went from having to do a stealth black drama to now she is doing a bona fide black drama starring Kerry Washington. She doesn't have to go cast a white star anymore. She can because she's so successful. So it's frustrating that she had to jump through the hoops, but she did and she got there. So there's as much to encourage us as there is to discourage us, and it doesn't help us to sit there wallowing in that, and it makes you angry. Use that anger, damn it! It's a wonderful motivator. You take that anger and use it to the good.
So
it helps you get out of bed sometimes. It really, because like, oh really? You're telling me no? That doesn't work for me.
That's another aha moment. It makes you get out of the bed in the morning. I like that. Anthony Weiner.
Yes.
Oh boy. Powerful man, a United States congressman.
Yeah.
Presumably has it all. Beautiful wife.
Beautiful and extraordinary wife.
Right.
Who's brilliant and accomplished and could have had probably many men.
Prospect for mayor.
Yes.
And I don't want to just pick on him.
Yeah.
There's Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's Elliot Spitzer. What do you make of all of that?
I'm very disturbed as a parent, and I'm no prude. I believe we should be a little bit more like Europe. It's none of our business what people are doing in their bedrooms. And if you have one mistress, I'm okay with it. Publicizing pictures of your private parts, I have a problem with. We're living in an era where we're trying to teach kids to be decent, and we have a problem with the ubiquity of pornography. I mean, we have all these horrible scandals where kids are filming themselves having sex, and then somebody's reputation is basically ruined for life because they made a stupid error and they let their boyfriend film them while they were having sex. I just feel like we have to hold people to some kind of standard. And it's not about you have to be faithful to your wife. It's your wife's problem if you're not faithful to her, and that's between the two of you. And a lot of people have an arrangement. That's none of our business. But when you start abusing the position, Anthony Weiner has abused the position. Sorry, full stop. How does doing what he did mesh with being a public servant? It just doesn't. Well, maybe it's another kind of public service, but then there are sites for people like that. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think it's another story. I think it's his own business. It doesn't particularly surprise me. It's sad that the public was lied to, but that's between them. Again, it's shades of Thomas Jefferson doing it with the servant in your house. That was interesting. And Spitzer, again, another one who's gotten away with murder in a sense, because what's the big consequence for him? If any of his victims had done what he did, he would have had them under the jail. The fact that other than the fact that his political life may be over, he hasn't really suffered a consequence. So how, as parents, do we tell our kids, you got to follow the straight and narrow, you got to follow the rules, you have to try to act decently when, well, Weiner's doing whatever he wants and nobody's asking him to leave. Spitzer lost his job, yes, but now he has a TV show. So, and it extends to other things. The reality stars are people who did porn videos. I mean, it's what message are we sending young people about what leads to success? And I'm not speaking as a prude. And I'm not lambasting these people personally. I don't know any of them personally, and I think people are very complicated. Weiner has many different sides. Spitzer has many different sides. But I do think if we're going to ask our young people to be accountable, we have to ask the same of the leaders. And nobody poor gets away with what these guys have gotten away with. And Strauss-Kahn, to me, is the most heinous example, if indeed what he's alleged to have done is true.
I saw you blog about that, I think.
I just think it's appalling. And what's even more appalling is that people are doubting the woman's word. No wonder women don't come forward. Now, unfortunately, we can blame the Tawana Brawleys and the strippers in the Duke case for that kind of doubt, because those stories then cast down on all other victims. But that, to me, to take advantage of someone who is so powerless And I don't know how his lawyers sleep at night, if indeed he's guilty, because that's a horrible abuse of another human being. So
I want to do a quick plug for your mom, Josephine Premice.
Yes.
Talking about history.
Yes.
Your mother was an icon.
Yes, she was.
And I don't know how many people know about her. You wrote a book, Always Wear Joy. That's on my to-read list for the summer.
It's a little different from the last book you read.
Can I tell you? I went to Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
And I said, I want everything by Susan Fales-Hill in Barnes & Noble. And they said, we're out. Union Square, Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
So I had to go to another one in Queens.
This is good advertising. My 3 fans have cleared out Barnes & Noble.
No. And they said the paperback of One Flight Up comes out in July. So I
Yes.
come back and get that and give it for gifts. But
Thank you.
Please talk about your mother and the lasting legacy
Well,
that
my
she
mother
had.
was a remarkable woman who made it at a time when you didn't make it through doing porno videos of yourself and not having any talent and being on a reality show. My mother was the daughter of Haitian immigrants, and she wanted to be a performer from the time she could walk, basically. And her family was very traditional, so they forced her to take violin lessons in order to have permission to take dance classes. And she studied with everybody, Martha Graham, you name them, she studied with them. Her first professional performance was at Carnegie Hall when she was 17. She was in the first ever African dance concert. And in the audience were then First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and her good friend Mary McLeod Bethune, who, of course, was the investigative journalist of great note. At any rate, it was the first time that African dance was being presented as an art form in the United States, as opposed to just part of an ethnographic freak show. So it was very significant. And from there, she went on to do Broadway. She went on to become a performer throughout Europe and South America. She was one of the sort of chanteuses of the 50s in the mold of Eartha Kitt. And in France, they called her La Petite Josephine because she was the second coming of Josephine Baker in their eyes. So she was really part of a coterie of women who helped to shatter the mold of black women as mammies and servants. These were glamorous performers. And that doesn't seem like much now because we're surrounded by glamorous black women. But if you go back and look through any mainstream magazine of the 40s or 50s, you'd be very hard-pressed. There are no black women except for maybe Aunt Jemima on a pancake box. So it was quite revolutionary to have these women in evening gowns, the equal of any white woman, seductive and appealing to any white man, singing in a variety of languages. And it was very interesting when I toured with that book 8 years ago. I met a businessman in Cleveland, and he said, this was a black man in corporate America. He said, your mother made it easier for me. And I thought, would you go to work in drag? How did she make it easier for you? But he said the fact that she walked into the rooms that she walked into, it gave me the courage to go and do that. But she also put out a different image out there that then made it easier for people to relate to him as somebody who was their equal. So again, going back to the message of hope for young people, when and where you enter, the whole race enters with you, as the saying goes. And that's a tremendously pressured position, but it's a powerful one as well, because you can really turn people's minds around if you persevere.
With that being said, what do you have coming up next? So are you writing another book?
So I just turned in a manuscript for another book that takes on the whole issue of reality TV and its depiction of women, which I think is a huge issue.
And Sophia James is going to get it as soon as it comes out.
I'll be sending her a free copy since I'm huge. You know where else I'm big apparently is in the former Yugoslavia. I've got a huge Serbian following. They're going to translate my One Flight Up into Serbian anyway. So that book will probably come out in another year. And then I'm looking to maybe dip my toe back into the TV world because there is more scripted television being done again. And now that my daughter's 8, I can ramp up on the work hours side. And so I feel there might be some interesting opportunities out there.
Cool. Well, the best of luck to whatever you do.
Thank you.
And I have to really thank you again for coming, because this has been a real treat for people like myself and Sophia James and everyone else that I've been telling about interviewing you, because when you talk about hope and being optimistic about the future, especially as African Americans, the only way we can do that is if we see a lot of African Americans doing positive things. And so, not just you, but Sandra Rhimes, Tyler Perry, everyone who's doing positive work out there in the medium, we appreciate it. And for people like Sophia and I, to use your line, it makes us wake up in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. For more information on Susan Fales-Hill, please visit her website, www.susanfales-hill.com. This is Roy Paul for New School Radio.